In a world where most people watch movies and then forget about them, these brave heroes join forces to watch them again and then talk about them. Join them in their epic journey as they go back in time, a decade and beyond, to revisit and break down films from a vast array of genres. Do these movies hold up over time? Are they classics? Find out on Retro Movie Roundtable. Starring your hosts, Brian Fry, Chad Robinson, Dustin Melbardis, Nathan Lutz, and Russell Guest. Coming now to headphones in your ears.
Welcome all you lords, ladies, and knights of the Retro Movie Roundtable, the podcast where we watch movies and then talk about them. I'm your host, Chad Robinson, and joining me today is my good friend and co-host, Dustin Melbardis. Dustin, how are you?
I am relaxed. It is an awesome, kind of slow-paced Saturday for me. My New Year's resolution this year was not to rush anything. I don't want to feel rushed. I move at a pretty fast pace when I'm at work. So when I'm at home just chilling, I don't want to feel like rushed or that I need to move fast to anything. If that means that I have to skip a workout, that's fine. But yeah, I'm just having a relaxing, chill day.
I hate you so much. And our podcast listeners will find out why in a minute. He's going to go back to Justin if he's not careful. But you know what, Dustin? Despite your relaxed, laid-back nature, I am amped up. Do you know why?
Probably about the movie we're covering tonight, huh?
No? Well, yes, but we have a crossover guest, which is the best kind of guest. Yes. From the Middle Class Film Class podcast, we have Pete Abeyta. Did I butcher that, Pete?
You nailed it.
Nailed it. Awesome. That's what I go for.
Yeah.
Pete, thank you for joining us. Please tell our listeners about Middle Class Film Class podcast, what you guys do, where to find it real quick, and then we'll jump into our warm-ups.
Absolutely. First off, thanks for having me. It's nice to be on the show, see one of your two faces through the old Skyper here.
Yeah, I'm an analog person.
It's all good.
No camera.
I'm happy to be here. The show that I have is it's a podcast called Middle Class Film Class, as you said before. We release twice a week, and we do one episode on Mondays is called Gab and Chatter. It's a weekly movie news, interesting topics, discussion topics, and sometimes interviews with cast and crew from upcoming movies. And then we also do streaming recommendations at the end of that episode. So all three of us, me, Joseph, and Tyler, will give our recommendations for stuff that we've streamed this week for free on our services that our listeners can also stream if it's worth their time. And then on Wednesdays, we do one deep dive review into a movie of our choice, chosen at random from our spinning Wheel of Destiny. Probably the biggest difference between our show and the 100,000 million movie podcasts you have out there is that we record everything live to tape like a morning radio talk show. So all the sound effects are added live, all the intro music and trailers and things are all live. So we also do a ton of audience participation. So people send in voicemails, emails, we'll read them on the air. And probably about a quarter of our picks are fan picks. They come from suggestions from the listeners. So you can find it anywhere you think you can find podcasts, and a lot of places you didn't think you could find podcasts. So yeah, it's a fun time.
Well, that is awesome, and fan participation is awesome, and I am not at all jealous. Do I sound jealous at all, Dustin?
I think we're happy in our little bubble then.
Yeah.
Fans. He's got fans. Hey, all right.
Yeah. I did want to say on the topic of New Year's resolutions, my New Year's resolution is to have Barack Obama follow me on Twitter. So far, not successful.
Well, keep at it.
That's my one New Year's resolution.
He is a big fan of our show. I know he listens, so...
That's right.
Mr. President, if you could please just reach out to Pete, give him a follow. That would help out a lot. Him and the Queen, big fans. Those are our only two fans.
Oh, okay. No, Bruce Springsteen?
No, the boss
not
is...
the boss.
Just the boss is not a fan. All right, so we do a couple quick warm-up questions before we get into our movie. Today's movie, we've got some excitement. Sometimes it's the opposite. What's a slow and hard movie for you to get through?
Ooh, slow and hard movie to get through.
I hate the phrasing of this. Darn you, Russell.
Slow and this movie. Magic Mike, is that what we're talking about?
Yes, yes.
I don't know. I like slow movies. That's kind of my jam.
Oh no.
I'd say probably the last one I watched, which was, it was good, but it didn't scratch the itch that I really wanted. And it was pretty slow. It was the Seventh Seal, Ingrid Bergman. I think that's the actor. That's Ingmar Bergman.
Yep. Yeah, that is incredibly slow.
Good, but slow. It's pretty slow, and it comes from my people from Sweden, and it's it's not as it's not paced like a modern movie. So let's just say that.
Right. Yeah, that's from what, 40s, 30s, something like that. It's considerably older.
Let me check my Letterboxd, because I just watched this thing, and I'm a huge Letterboxd user. I'm a
Absolutely
big fan. You guys on Letterboxd?
We are. We even have our list that shows, hey, you can filter by host and see when you don't want to listen to me talk.
Oh, that's awesome. It's 1957.
1957. Excellent. Yes. Dustin, what was the last movie that you watched?
The last movie that I watched was Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street, because I had heard that the new Joker was going to be a musical.
Yes. Yeah.
So I was like, well, I guess if I got to get in the mood. So yeah, it's one of those things. One of the scenes came across YouTube, and I was like, and I've said this before on the podcast, why watch a clip on YouTube when you can just pop in the flick? So I watched Sweeney Todd.
Excellent. Gotta have best meat pies in London?
The best pies in London. It's a good one. Sondheim is a killer. It's strangely enough, you think of like the Tim Burton and Danny Elfman connection, but this is a, Tim Burton and Sondheim connection. And so like that's one thing that kind of makes it a little special, considering the same types of faces you're used to seeing with that. And it's just, it's a killer.
And I did ask you the wrong question, so I'll ask you the right question now, and then get back because I have a rant of my own. But
yeah.
What is your slow and hard movie? Tag on you, Russell.
Listeners of the podcast will remember this flick from last year.
Oh no,
Elliot Gould, The Long Goodbye is a movie that is slow and hard for me to get through. And I believe I remember saying on our end of the year countdown that what I had done was I went to Google and I typed, "Is The Long Goodbye?" and I let Google finish it for me, and it said boring.
Yes.
Because it is, and it's impossible for me to get through. So that's the one that's really hard. I mean, I had to watch it, but it was way, way too much for me.
Yes, I agree. I was not on that podcast, thankfully, but I would have given it similar feelings.
Dude, we were spared. Neither of us were on the podcast, but we had to review it.
That's funny.
Draining me.
Yeah, you never want to do that for a guest that gets up for their movie. It's like, hey, I've presented this to you. I'm like, I would rather watch my paint dry.
Yeah.
For me, I love horror movies. It's my thing. But what I don't love is The Witch. And it sounds like Pete and I are now enemies, because this seems like your type of movie, but people absolutely adore this movie. I just find it mind-numbingly boring. It took me 3 tries to get through. I can count on one hand with fingers left over the amount of interesting things that happened in this movie.
You don't like the part where the baby gets turned into anti-aging cream?
No, it's just... Black Phillip was the only redeeming quality of that movie. And even then, that you could have just given me a short TikTok of a goat and I would have been happier. So
yeah, I'm an apologist for The Witch. I saw it opening weekend in theaters on a whim, and I didn't know what I was getting myself into. And as the audience was leaving this small theater I was in, I was sitting there watching the silent credits. And I could hear everybody murmuring as they went out, like, what the hell was that? That was garbage. That was it. I thought something was going to happen. And I'm sitting there like, wow, that was fantastic. That was so good.
Silent adoration of other people are complaining about.
I was cleaning the drool off of my bib. I
would have liked to have been in that theater, because I'm in the minority. I have rarely encountered people that don't just adore this movie. So it's forever on my list. So Pete, I will ask you the question I asked Dustin. What's the last movie that you watched?
Last movie I watched was streaming on Shudder called Alligator from 1980.
Nice.
Yeah, super fun. Had some people recommend it to me on film Twitter and Facebook, and it looked like cheesy fun, and it was exactly that. Unrelenting alligator kills. Robert Forster, 40 years ago, already balding, and whoever wrote the script wrote a line forcing him to comment on his male pattern baldness and how much he hated it. I thought that was hilarious. He's like having a sensual moment with someone who's probably young enough to be his daughter in the movie, and she like plays with his hair, and he goes, "I got male pattern baldness, and I don't like it. I don't want to talk about it again," and had no bearing on the story. But yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, excellent.
Did you do that on purpose, Mr. Segway, Mr. Pete Segway? Speaking of male pattern baldness, let's talk about our actor for today.
Hey.
Oh yeah, one of the king of bald.
Oh, I've got a movie. Dustin.
Sorry.
I want to talk about.
What's the last movie you watched?
I want my narcissism moment. I watched The Wolf of Snow Hollow, and it was one of the most tonally strange werewolf movies I have ever seen.
Yes, co-starring Robert Forster.
Yes,
from Alligator.
Yeah.
His last movie before he passed away.
Yes, it's a comedy. It's drama. It's horror. It is all over the place, and I am still unsure what to do with it. So I think I recommend it. It's one of the better modern werewolf movies, but Dog Soldiers is still my go-to. But yes, speaking of male pattern baldness.
You know what I'm talking about? Wolf of Snow Hollow more? Jim Cunningham? Or Jim Cummings?
Jim Cummings, yes.
Maybe the most intriguing thing about what you just said is the strongest recommendation I can hear from you is if you say, "I think I recommend it."
Yes. Yes.
Pretty sure.
Yeah, it's just a strange movie, but
Which did you like better, Wolf of Snow Hollow or Mad God?
Mad God.
Oh, really?
I did like Mad God better, which that is, if you want tonally strange, that movie is for you. What is also strange is our movie today in a very different way, male pattern baldness. Dustin, what movie are we doing today?
From 2006, we are doing Crank.
We are doing the movie Crank,
Yeah.
if anyone is confused.
I don't know about you guys, but
Yes. Yes.
It's a relaxing Saturday. It's a different kind of Saturday.
yeah, I don't have to be at work tomorrow, so anything goes.
Right.
Hey.
Right. So from 2006, we have Crank, starring Jason Statham, Amy Smart, Jose Pablo Cantillo, Efren Ramirez, and Dwight Yoakam. It has a budget of $12 million. It does significantly better in the box office domestically. It's about $28 million. It places 100th. It places ahead of The Ant Bully and right behind Stick It, two movies I have not seen nor heard of. And the number one movie of that year, Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest. IMDb rating 6.9. Rotten Tomatoes, critics actually give it a surprising 61%. I'm a little surprised at the critics here. The audience likes it more, 71%. It wins nada. So that's, Dustin, I feel like that's becoming a theme of ours, of movies that don't win anything and aren't nominated for anything.
I think at least we usually get like somewhere on like, oh, this made thrillers like top 100, or what was that channel you mentioned earlier?
Shudder.
Like the Shudder, like somebody's list. It made at least somebody's list, but no, we got nothing on Crank here.
Right. So Pete, this was your submission to us. We picked it. Had you seen Crank before? If so, what were your thoughts coming back to it this time? Does it hold up?
No, I haven't seen Crank or Crank 2 High Voltage. And all I've ever heard of, honestly, is Crank High Voltage, the second of the installment. And I heard a number of people, like critics that I kind of align with, say that Crank 2 is just a lot of fun, and it's nonstop action, and it's kind of like Hardcore Henry. And this one, it did not land on me all that much. Like, the fun stuff was pretty fun, and the outlandishness. It's almost like the pacing of Smoking Aces, where it's like very frenetic and very obviously high energy. The point of the movie is to keep his adrenaline high. but I kind of was expecting a little bit more. Maybe because since this was almost like the dawn of like rock star cinema, Monster Energy cinema, that it spawned stuff that it is more high energy, like Hardcore Henry, or something like Smokin' Aces. Those are kind of like my go-to really nonstop high energy movies. But it was a very fun movie. But I think maybe if I watched this in 2006, I'm 36 now, so I would have been right around 20. I probably would have just fallen in love with it because it was so extreme and over the top and never quite seen anything like it. Now it's like some of the stuff is like, Chev's not the greatest guy.
Right. Yeah.
Chev Chelios.
We've had that quite often. If you didn't get to it in time when it was around, or particularly if you were a child, we keep bringing up the movie Legend, which is absolute garbage. But the people that saw it as children treasure this movie, and good for them. Treasure those memories. Your movie is garbage. Dustin, how about you? Had you seen Crank?
No, I had not seen it before, but that is the number one recurring thing. Is I've seen the fewest movies of anybody on these shows, and so, but I knew about it, and I knew about Statham, and I knew about a sort of cultural recognition of this kind of action flick. And funny, Hardcore Henry was the first thing I thought of, but I didn't hear anything about the sequel being somehow more touted. I just thought this was, Crank. When I mentioned that we would be doing it for the podcast, I had friends of mine say, Crank, really? Is it that old? Like, it's 16 years ago. Yeah,
right.
It is. And I think some things do seem dated, but as far as for what it is and for what the view, like the purpose of this kind of movie, I think it accomplishes what it's supposed to. But, I'll wait till after the break for us to really dive deep into it. But I was expecting the pace to be frenetic. It definitely met that. And I think that's kind of all I needed to expect was that this is going to move fast. Get ready. 88 minutes. I sat down with some pizza and wings. I'm like, let's do this. Let's revert back to the very end of high school Dustin and jump into this. And it was worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to make it 3 for 3. I had not seen Crank. I had the same expectations as Dustin. I was sitting down with my Monster Energy drink as I was watching this. So I was a little pleased there. Crank's not a movie that you expect to be a scathing indictment with social commentary. That's not why you're seeing this movie. There are some things in here that we've related to James Bond podcasts. They're problematic. That's not what this movie is really trying to do. Did I enjoy it? Yes, I did. I think, Pete, you make the best point. Had I gotten to this in 2006, yeah, we're right there in age. I would have been way more amped for this movie than, as a 37-year-old with a 5-year-old daughter. It's like, okay, this changes the tone for me between, Chev is now kind of a jerk where he would have been like the coolest dude ever.
I think Chev is supposed to be extremely cool. And I think at that age when we should have seen it, might be the wrong word, but at that age, had we hit it when it came out, Chev Chelios, this is coming after 2 Transporter movies and The Italian Job. Like this guy is supposed to be, a hero and very cool. And I think we learned pretty quick that Chev Chelios isn't all of those things, but it's enough to drive a movie, and it did.
Yeah. So, if you have not seen Crank yet, please check it out. If you have, we are going to take a brief ad break before Dustin spoils this movie for you. We will be right back.
Welcome to the All 80s Movies Podcast.
I'm Bill.
And I'm Jason, and this is the podcast where we talk about the blockbusters, the flops, and everything in between from one of the freshest decades for movies, the 1980s. So whether you're a brain, a jock, a valley girl, or a Jedi, we've got some 80s classics for you.
Do these movies stand the test of time? Are we discovering something new? Is there an 80s movie we're finally watching for the first time?
Join us each week as we dive into the cinematic nostalgia that inspired and influenced a generation. From the hits to the cult classics, We'll discuss our earliest memories, favorite scenes, fun facts, and our not-so-favorite movie moments, too.
It's the All 80s Movies Podcast, now available on all major streaming platforms. Please subscribe and happy listening.
And we're back. Last chance, if you haven't seen Crank, put us on pause, go check it out. Dustin, can you break down Crank for us?
Don Carlos is the leader of a crime ring who is looking to eliminate the increasing presence of rival gangsters on his turf by having their leader, Don Kim, assassinated. He sends his man, Chev Chelios, to pull the trigger. To avoid backlash and blame, Ricky Verona, another in the employ of Don Carlos, poisons Chelios with a synthetic drug that inhibits the flow of adrenaline, which should eventually lead to Chelios' heart stopping and Don Carlos running the crime scene with no further foreign encroachment. Surprisingly, Chelios' heart does not give out right away, and through a fast-paced morning of driving fast, doing a bump of coke off the floor of a bathroom, fighting with the unaffiliated Sin City disciples, and chatting with his doctor, Dwight Yoakam, he learns that he needs to keep his adrenaline up in order to survive the day, which turns into a high-speed chase toward protecting his girlfriend Eve, played by an in-her acting prime Amy Smart, and getting revenge on Don Carlos and Verona, which leads us to the movie itself. It took some effort to get this information from the movie, because your attention is bombarded by Chelios driving a Buick Riviera through a mall, storming a hospital searching for epinephrine, and getting shocked by defibrillator paddles, fighting and chopping off Verona's brother's hand, and then shooting him with it, hand still attached, confessing his true profession to Eve while both fending off killers and railing her in Chinatown, followed by a showdown between the two original gangs, leading to a helicopter fist fight high above the city, in which Verona is choked to death and Chev falls half of a mile onto a car before we hear 2 more heartbeats.
Yeah.
That was a great synopsis, by the way. I love that.
It was difficult, as I only watched this movie once, and I'm just like, how did we get here? But we got here.
Right. Yeah, I almost feel like you've eliminated our plot discussion altogether. You covered everything, Dustin. But yeah, I'll pitch this to Pete first and foremost. We start just bang, bang, right off. There's the FU DVD playing, gets up, first-person camera, disorientation, and we go straight into it. The metal music is playing. He's going nuts on his apartment, and you learn that this Beijing cocktail is in his system. Do you like a movie like Crank just foregoing exposition, really, and saying, here we go?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, if you're going to do it with any movie, this type of movie is the one you're going to do it with. It's interesting because watching that plot now, it's like, this will kill you. We're going to poison you. It will kill you. It's not going to happen now. It's a weird like trope in the like assassination in movies, and I kind of dig it. Most recently, the best version of that I've seen was in Kate from last year on Netflix, starring Mary Elizabeth Winstead. She's got like radiation poisoning. It will kill her in 24 hours. It's just take adrenaline to find the person that poisoned her. And it was like, that was kind of like this, but with a really strong, offensive male, front. I dug the fact that it's the filmmakers are essentially telling the audience, this is not about plot.
Yep.
Yeah, you don't even need to know this character's name. We'll tell you later. Don't worry about it. Right now, all you need to know is he's dying. He's your best friend. The camera's attached to him, and the guy on the screen is the bad guy. So buckle up. Here it comes.
Yeah, he had a sweet apartment, too, for an assassin. Dustin, you are Mr. Kung Fu guy action. Does skipping all the background here and just getting straight to the Beijing cocktail 24 countdown clock, is that a good device for a movie like Crank?
Totally. Yeah. And I didn't find myself yearning for the plot when you are just propelled into the movie. You could say that you'll call it unique form of exposition of any information you get which you have to be looking for. I think only through watching a movie in the critical sense that we were, could I have remembered any of this stuff. Because I tried really hard not to look at like online things to find it, like to find exactly what was happening. And I don't know if after 2 or 3 watches, anybody would say for sure that they know exactly what's going on. But just pushing you into it so fast, you learn he's poisoned. He doesn't have that long. This guy seems bad. I guess he's going to probably go try to find him. Pretty late into the movie, we learn about Eve, his girlfriend. We learn about his decision not to kill Don Kim, which was his original order from Don Carlito. Like, these type of things are totally fine being in the background, because the fun... We even start off in a first-person view. Speaking of Hardcore Henry, we start off in a first person. For a second there, I was like, uh-oh. Are we doing this the whole time? No, we aren't. And we meet him. He reacts violently to the FU DVD. Listeners, DVDs were things we used to purchase and stick into a console to play movies. That was actually pretty interesting. And any of the quick ways that they were able to get you exposition, I guess, should be lauded. Because eventually you get to the point where you're just following Chev. Some of the other relationships that he has, for instance, with that other gang, the Sin City Disciples, mean nothing at all. Towards the like when you recap it all, his relationship with that one gang leader who's smoking the Black and Mild, like that doesn't matter. But that is how he learns that he needs to do stuff to keep his adrenaline up. So you're kind of learning along with him, and I think there's some creativity with that kind of backing away from the movie. I'm like, that through that lens, I'm like, that's pretty cool how they did that. Though it might not have been completely coherent, this is the kind of movie that's like, I think we have enough to get there. Now, you did bring this up with like your Mr. Kung Fu. This movie made me think of The Raid from 2011. Mm-hmm. We didn't need any plot in that at all. All we needed to do was like, oh, they're going in. They're going in the building. It's a raid. Okay, we're fine. So I think, and this wasn't the place to say it, but I could have done with more fighting. I could have done with more Kung Fu.
Sure.
We had a lot of driving. We had some shootouts, but I could have done with more of Jason Statham doing the things that Jason Statham does best, but you can't put the transporter into this movie.
Well, I think also the fact that you're starting out with no exposition and you're starting out with the hook of the movie. It's like, you know that the interesting thing about this movie is basically that it's speed, except for Jason Statham is the bus, right?
Yeah.
And his heart is the bus. And it's like you want as much screen time with that concept as possible to be able to showcase as a filmmaker all these fun things that you can do to get this heart rate up. Having sex in public with a girlfriend, or fighting someone, or riding the motorcycle, standing up, crashing into the cafe or whatever. All those things are interesting parts of that singular like one line concept. So his heart rate can't slow down. He needs to keep the adrenaline pumping. So how do we do that? How do you fill 90 minutes with that doing that? And when it gets a little slow and it gets a little bit boring, that's when you give the audience a little exposition and say, okay, let's take a break from the high-paced, fast-paced stuff for a minute. This reached its natural lull. I gotta slow the audience's heart rate down a little bit.
Yeah, and you need to take away a little bit of it so that the audience wants more crank.
Yeah, exactly. you gotta give them the first taste for free.
Dustin, you mentioned the first-person camera and your thought of, oh, we're not doing this the whole time, are we? I had the same thought when they first showed the X-ray shot of the heart. It's like, oh man, we're going to get a lot of these throughout the movie, aren't we? This is where we're going, because they went back to that well 2 or 3 times pretty quickly, but wisely they backed off. They backed off for quite some time, and then it's like, okay, there's a rule of 3. We did this 3 times in 5 minutes. The audience has it. We will now just make him get a little sweaty or something, or hunt for epinephrine. And with this movie, the director said they tried to base it a lot on Grand Theft Auto, which I'm sure is making a lot of the moms back in that age very, very nervous and very upset if like this playing out on on screen, because he's getting his stars up. The cops are chasing him. He is getting into fights with everyone. He's hijacking other cars, throwing the cabbie out and screaming Al-Qaeda to the guy was not cool at all.
No, that was hard to watch.
Like that poor cab driver. But there's a lot of Grand Theft Auto type things happening in this movie. And to our point earlier, most of the protagonists in Grand Theft Auto are not good people. They are a mixed bag, to say the best of them. So we get him with a relationship with his girlfriend where he's not really telling her what's going on for a while. He's assaulting people at a hospital. He's throwing bedpans at people. So with
cameo from Dennis from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia too.
Yes, yeah. Glenn Howerton. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he administers that shock, but I think he also has on his cart, he has some meds, so he's able to get him some epinephrine, I think.
Yeah, he's where he does get the EpiPens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am not a doctor. I write code, but I have never heard of epinephrine giving you an erection.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
I wish I could. Yeah. That seemed like a throwaway teenage boy type joke here. Like he runs 17 some odd miles on epinephrine, which, I have allergies and I have never gained superpowers through an EpiPen, but.
Well, I think that's you hit the nail on the head there is that's kind of who this was marketed to.
Oh, definitely. It's certainly not women.
It's certainly not women. It's I guess I can't say certainly, but there's a very particular male demographic of that age that like this is everything they needed, and it would be sad to know for sure that there were some people that thought the Al-Qaeda joke was funny, but there's also the high speed, there's a lot of nudity in this, and it's only to appeal to that audience. It certainly doesn't add to much aside from the idea that some of these people live in a life where this is normal behavior. You can get that. We've been doing movies that you can get that image to the audience without it. This is I got a lot of what was the movie like the Jamie Kennedy plays like a hip hop star or like he's
Kicking It Old School,
something like that. Yeah, very much like. This is the stuff. It makes sense that I think I did see that this was originally written with Johnny Knoxville in mind to play the lead.
Oh wow!
Huh.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'd seen a different guest, but yeah,
yes, it makes sense who this is appealing to.
Sure.
Yeah, the rooftop that you're talking about with the naked girls and the like clear balls, just as art pieces.
Yeah, you've got those. You've got the models who are hanging out at the pool of Don Carlito. You have when you first meet Dr. Miles, he's getting some mixture of non-erotic and erotic massage at the same time while his answering service picks up for him, like seemingly for no reason.
Right.
It just kind of puts you into perhaps a little more debaucherous kind of world, a world where Chef Chelios would work. I think. There are different types of hitmen presented in movies. We are shown that Chev we don't even know if he's a good hitman. All we know is that he's kind of in the grimy crime world, not the elite crime world, which I hadn't thought of until we started recording. Is that he's part of? They're not even big time. They're just like this is the
scummy.
Just kind of scummy. And I think the nudity just kind of is there to remind you that this is kind of a scummy place.
Yeah, and on the fact of who this is targeted towards, you said it's definitely not targeted towards women. You guys left off something at the very beginning. This movie did win a couple of awards. Nothing that we would know, Golden Globes or Oscars, but in 2006, the Women's Film Critics Circles Award awarded Jason Statham with the Most Offensive Male Character Award for this movie.
Okay.
Deserve it.
And then also in the World Stunt Awards, just Stuntman Awards, Best Specialty Stunt was awarded to the motorcycle scene where he's doing the donuts on the motorcycle and then rides it standing up into the cafe.
Was it the riding it, or was it the cop holding on with the sort of metallic-based shoes with the sparks coming up? Because that was cool too. Like,
yeah, that was pretty slick. I like that. I don't know if it specifically says the lead character drives in circles on a motorcycle to escape the police. After escaping, he stands up on the motorcycle and is thrown off crashing into the cafe. But I liked it was almost insane that he just crashed into the cafe for no reason.
Right.
Well, I think his heart rate was probably already pretty high standing up there in the Awar scrubs.
Let's be completely fair. We said the movie isn't. We said what the movie isn't, which is like appealing to the critical thinkers. Yeah. And so what the movie is some awesome stunts and some incredible visual things to enjoy. You paid for the whole seat, but you're only going to need the edge of it. The movie that I was thinking of before with Jamie Kennedy was Malibu's Most Wanted. Like, just kind of like
yes.
scummy kind of culture. Anyway, we can move past it.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of some of the visuals in this movie, one of the things that stuck out to me, because there's some things, okay, we've seen this before, we've seen this done better. I have never seen a car sideways go up a mall escalator. So,
yeah, that was pretty neat.
So kudos to them for, we've covered this year of a driving inside of a house that makes absolutely no sense. So extending that to a mall is not that big of a deal, but having the car go up the escalator, stroke of brilliance there.
Well, it's a wild surprise as well. Pete, you had said, well, I don't know if he really needed to blast the motorcycle into the cafe, but it was such a shock. I mean, he's talking to Dr. Miles, and Dr. Miles goes, "What are you doing? Driving a car through a mall.
Right.
Cops chasing me." And then you just did. Like, how fun is that? It reminds me, like, it's Blues Brothers-esque. Just like, surprise, here we are. And that's a nice little cap on that driving scene. Because it's not really the end of the scene, but to have it flip and land on the escalator as it still goes up, that's like its own little style of brilliance.
Yeah, it's like it's insane for the sake of being insane. Like, why did this happen? Well, because we could, and we wanted to see a car go up an escalator sideways.
Yes.
Yeah.
And does it surprise you guys to know we talked about the action, we talk about it being Grand Theft Auto inspired. This movie has one explosion. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like somewhere in the corner, Michael Bay is crying himself to sleep over what could have been. Do you want...
Yeah. One explosion and no drone shots. After ambulance, he's like spinning in his grave, Michael Bay.
Yeah, Dustin, you're the one that wanted more action. Do you need explosions to fill that void in your heart, or...
No, I don't need more explosions. I like more explosions, but I don't need them. I mean, I think about the biggest surprise in terms of action this year for me had been Beverly Hills Cop, starting with an incredible car chase scene. But this movie needs more hand-to-hand Jason Statham showing off skills.
Absolutely, yes.
His intimidating presence and gun work is fine, but it's certainly not above average. What will I remember about Jason Statham aside from his use in ensemble casts is that he's also, well, aside from being an Olympic diver, an incredible martial artist, in which we essentially get none of that in this movie. Now, is it fine to say that, like, he spends some time dealing with Amy Smart, and this is like relationship acting as opposed to blocking and martial arts fighting? Like, can we sub that out? Sure we can, if you want the movie to be taken more seriously. At the time I was watching this movie, I said to my roommate who was watching it with me, said, this movie excels at what it does because it doesn't take itself too seriously. And that doesn't mean you couldn't have had at least one henchman, somebody with some nunchucks that he has to disarm and throw down an elevator shaft. I don't care what it is. We just need to have some of it, and we were lacking, I feel.
You could use the context of the story to the whole, like, he's shocking himself with a defibrillator. He could find a mobile unit. Henchman comes along, he shocks him in the head with the defibrillator or something. It's
totally.
Like, yeah, it's like a gear you loot you could pick up along the way when you're playing an RPG. New weapon, and then use that for a fun thing.
One of his new weapons he finds is the waffle iron that he burns his hand with.
Yes.
Imagine him slinging that waffle iron around to fight off some of these henchmen coming towards Eve's apartment. Imagine him actually fighting Alex, the brother Alex, instead of what we got out of that alleyway scene was we got Pedro from Napoleon Dynamite get scared and beat up by the big brother, the big dude.
Yeah.
There wasn't really much of a fight. He chops his hand off with a cleaver and then shoots him with his own gun with his own hand.
Yeah, that was pretty neat.
And then calls his brother a homosexual slur over the phone. Like what do we get from that alleyway? Nothing great, unfortunately. And that was such an opportunity for let's take 3 minutes to have something memorable come out of this that's memorable for the right reasons.
The most memorable part of that was to me was when the brother has no hand now and he tries to punch Chev on the ground and he punches his stump into the ground. You're like,
Yeah.
I know.
ugh.
Made me cringe. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the only other cringiest like missing appendage punch that I've ever seen was in a movie called Overlord. It's like a sci-fi Nazi movie where there's a kind of a Resident Evil type zombie that's a result of Nazi experimentation, and it's just like the two bones of his forearm are sticking out of his elbow, and he punches a hole through a wall with that, and it's like the bones shatter through the wall, and you're like, whoa, I've never seen anything like that before. So
when did that movie come out? Was it like a practical thing or was it like CGI? Because that sounds rad what you're describing.
Have you seen the movie
No,
or heard of
I
the
don't.
movie? It's called Overlord. I just watched it like a couple months ago for the first time, and it is something else. It's like Wolfenstein meets Resident Evil, and it's got what's his name, Wyatt Russell in it, and a couple other people you would recognize. Really, really good and like ultra gory. It's the first R-rated Bad Robot movie, so it's produced by J.J. Abrams.
That's right, Bad Robot J.J.
And I think that part's practical because there's a lot of practical stuff in it. There's a lot of CGI too, but that was pretty brutal.
Yeah, and as far as for this movie for practical, we've got Jason Statham doing his own stunts. Does he get kudos from you, or do you take the Danny Trejo approach of, hey, I'm not going to go get myself injured. I'm not going to take away a guy's job and a paycheck. I'm going to let someone else do my own stunts for me. So are you giving Jason kudos here?
I'd say yes. I don't think that there's enough. Like I don't know. I don't agree that you're taking away someone's job. I think famous actors and actresses that are voicing animated characters are taking away jobs from like voice actors.
Good voice actors.
Yes.
Right.
I don't like that. Except for most of my favorite animated movies are prominently featuring celebrity voice actors. Like The Lion King is like chock full of Jeremy Irons and James Earl Jones and Jonathan Taylor Thomas, Matthew Broderick. And so it's like that's great, but I still think that you should have voice actors do voice acting. And for stunts, it's so few and far between to get someone that you can do this sort of thing with. It makes the scenes feel so much better too when you don't have an obvious body double rolling and covering their face after a hit. It's like it just feels so much more real. And all the stunts do feel very real. I love to see Statham on the back of that motorcycle when he crashes into that cafe, though.
I think there's maybe a small group of people. Like while you asked that question, I thought to myself, all right, huge Jackie Chan fan, huge Tom Cruise fan, huge Jason Statham fan. Like these are things I like about these people, but I don't know if there's a larger group aside from. I mean, I think we could maybe list up to 10 right now, but a larger group of people that are known for doing their own stunts. I think with this movie probably made it easier. There were certain things that even weren't violent in nature. He does a little vault off the wall, off of a hand railing off the wall in the hospital. And he does it he's wearing sneakers, but I said like that's really cool, and I know that he could do that. Like that's a great little addition. Sometimes they do some really subtle things well, whereas some of the opportunities of other big things they can do, I felt a little lacking. I
think for me, it's the driving that's more impressive with Jason Statham. the willingness to do the driving. Obviously, we have the Italian job as background here, but to be able to do that stuff more than just jump off a few things, because I would do that and I would get hurt, but still, to not crash the things. I think of Quentin Tarantino telling Uma Thurman, "Go ahead and drive down the road, and you'll be fine." And then she gets in a huge accident and gets hurt. Or even with Tom Cruise, I really admire him in his stunt work, but he winds up shutting down movies from injuring himself.
Yeah, accidents and exactly.
Yeah, not the big ones that you would think. It's like jumping a small gap in a roof is what just completely destroyed him, not rappelling down the Burj Khalifa.
Yeah.
Like, of all, I guess if something goes wrong with the rappelling, there's no more movie, there's no more Tom Cruise. But
yeah, right. It solves that problem.
Yeah, I guess. So I'm not with Danny Trejo here. I guess at Trejo's age at this point, though, you really don't want a 70-year-old doing his own stunts. But yeah, I'm more in the, it's really cool that you're willing to do this. And Statham himself, he didn't want to accept this role. He didn't think he was funny. And so he told the directors, you need to find someone else. I hadn't heard the Johnny Knoxville pitch. What I had heard was Nick Cage. And he winds up doing something a little similar to this later on with something Ghostland. I just saw it. It just came out recently.
Prisoners of the Ghostland.
Yes. Yep. Which is not a great movie.
No, it's not good.
It's not good. But I
hated that movie.
I can see a Nick Cage in this type of role. But yeah, the directors just told him, hey, play it straight. Say your lines like a normal person, but let the dialogue be funny. And I kind of feel like that's Jason Statham's wheelhouse.
I agree with that. He was more or less funny in Snatch, and he wasn't saying anything particularly funny. It's just he's in funny situations and he plays the straight man, so it works.
May I have some Coke, please?
Right. I think he really does excel there. That's something I didn't think about, because this movie was funnier than I thought it would be, and some of it is just. I think the Chinatown sex scene was more humorous than sensual by a long shot.
Oh yeah.
And it keeps building. You have little kids high-fiving each other. You have like the astonished faces of old ladies. You have the bus of like high school Asian girls who then go on to, like, one of them is being interviewed about it. Even Amy Smart's language or lines in that are pretty good in terms of what's going on. Then Statham is asked, I guess this is kudos I wasn't expecting to give to him. Statham is asked to do a lot of like facial acting, not of just pain, your heart is stopping, but also confusion. Mm-hmm. Like he can't really control his body fully, and he does a lot of that.
He's good at looking confused. Every role he's got, he looks confused.
Yeah, but in that scene in particular, so I think he was put in a position to never take away from the comedy of a scene, and often through a better job than I expected, add to the humor of the scene.
I kind of want to address right before that scene, because there was something that really bothered me, and I had no idea. Well, there are other things during that scene that bothered me, but Amy Smart is depicted with the hiccups, and I was like, why did you make this directorial decision? Well, it turns out they're just incredibly lazy. She literally had the hiccups during their scenes, and nobody called cut, and they just kept going.
Wow.
So
I read that trivia bit too, but I like that for her character, because I'm gonna say she was probably my favorite character. I like her like almost completely unawareness of her. She just kind of like waltzing through life, and everything seems to be like insane happening in the background. He's literally like murdering a guy and throwing him in the pool right behind her when she drops her purse. Yeah. And she's completely oblivious to it, doesn't hear this slamming of the gate on this guy's head. Mm-hmm. But there's the scene when he's being chased with her down the outdoor like fire escape ladder, and there's someone shooting at them from the top, and she doesn't even seem like she's phased at all. She's just like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And I read that whole hiccuping thing just as kind of like this is serious, and she's giggling through the entire thing, and she's just because she has the hiccups, and it's like, how dumb is that?
Well, he is rummaging through her apartment looking for a way to hurt himself and make himself feel alive, and she is just solely concerned about her microwave clock being changed to the correct time.
Yeah.
So yeah, that does lend a little bit. And they allude to it. They show the bong in the background of her. They allude to the fact that she's kind of a burnout, that she's not all there, but she's still, during the scene that Dustin's talking about, I guess we'll get into this a little bit, she punches Jason Statham. This is a very Sean Connery, no means yes type scene. Like, it's an extreme of, hey, stop grabbing my breasts. This is not okay. It becomes super rapey. In 2022, you're not going to have a bunch of bystanders cheering this on and like taking pictures. So this is something I don't even think it would have worked in 2006 where it more...
He has to be played as the villain if this is happening. And I mean, he's a hitman, so by default he's a villain.
Yeah.
So it makes sense, but you're supposed to, the camera's attached to him, so he's like this anti-hero, and you want to root for Chev, but you're like, okay, first you throw the poor Middle Eastern dude out and say Al-Qaeda, and just throw him to the wolves, and then you rape your girlfriend, which is raped. Doesn't matter if you're married or dating or not, and not even that in public.
Right.
On the ground, on the filthy ground.
There's ways to set this up of like some form of exposition earlier, and again, exposition is not this movie's strong point, but to say, you've always wanted to have sex in public, and she's like, now, and then just change the tone instead of no and physical hitting and screaming, and then having it transform into, well, it's okay because she liked it. Like, that's not a great message.
Yes. It could have used they have those. I bought these vibrating panties at the store.
Sure.
I wore them out. Oh, I totally forgot. All the remotes in my purse, and could have been any form of that just didn't make it an outright rape.
Yeah, pair that with yakety sex, and this is a lot more fun. No, it's like there's another aspect to that, which is a little earlier, and tell me if you remember this, because I did only see the movie once, but I believe he raises his hand to her. She flinches.
Oh, yeah.
And then she says, sorry.
Yep.
This is bad, y'all. And the movie was made. And no one said, don't do that. And so this is where, kudos to our restraint before the break to say, how does this movie hold up? And we're like, some things kind of didn't. But like that was rough to watch, and so it was also like, and it didn't actually cast like a shadow over the movie. We were still moving too fast to sit down and sit in any of these emotions, and some of her lines during that outdoor sex scene. I mean, she's saying something about like, you like that. You can't get it up. It's like she's fighting back verbally in a way, which is supposed to be playful and teasing a bit. It says, for a scene that had an intention, perhaps they got it across as best as that scene as written could have been. But as I'm watching the movie, I'm taking notes. I go, they messed it up. Because having sex needed in part of the arc of getting him from poisoned to survival is brilliant and could have been fun. And I think they kind of messed it up.
Yeah, and I feel like they try and give her a little bit of revenge very shortly afterwards with the car scene, and she is giving him oral pleasure. I've got to be careful because we are a PG podcast. This is not a PG movie, but she stops. And driving while doing that is a bad idea, but he's like, what the heck? And she goes, so you can fall asleep like you always do? I don't think so. So we're meant to laugh at Chev's misfortune there after another scene where she is pretty much against her will. So then she has the power here. But yeah, I feel like that's what they were doing with that scene because it really wasn't necessary. We just had the sex scene. But yeah, it does not, it probably didn't hold up to scrutiny in 2006 as Pete's mentioned most despicable character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that I like to read on like movies that have been around a while. I like to go on Letterboxd and read some of these top reviews. And one of them essentially says, "This is the best and worst film ever made." It's like there are some really fun things about it, and then there's some stuff they're like, "Come on, Chev, I want to like you, man. Rape your girlfriend like that."
I think you're better off with a character who is perhaps written and known to the audience as like an abuser. It's better off that you know that, and like maybe that's the not ideal form. You're trying to use a philosophical term. Like that's the one thing you know about that character. Sure. That character is more palatable than the so far gray leaning towards black, like hero who's not a hero, not even really an anti-hero, just a character that you're following. And that kind of slowly, an hour into the movie, becomes an aspect of him. It would get to the point where now, here's the thing, 16 years later, which is crazy to say out loud, I know that there's a Crank 2 that exists.
Right.
And I'm thinking to myself, like, kind of hope that this would be following someone else. Because Chev, he ain't it.
No.
Yeah, maybe his personality got shocked out of him when he fell out of that plane like Dave Chappelle and Connor.
His heart is swapped out for a mechanical one, if you need to know, and he has only 1 hour to live.
And in that one, it's only electricity. It's not adrenaline. He has to shock himself. Hence the name, Crank High Voltage.
Right.
Speaking of the history of the actual like film creators, the directors are credited as Neveldine and Taylor. It's Mark Neveldine and Brian Taylor, and they worked on this. This was their first movie, so part of it, I want to say, well done, you. First feature-length movie, first directing credits for both of these guys. They work as a team, kind of like Daniels or any number of brother directing
Coens,
duos. Yeah, but this is their first one, and it's like I can see the roughness. It feels like two film school students that are really annoying, that are constantly chugging Rockstar and Monster Energy drink between classes and smoking cigarettes, and they make this movie, and here it is. Their follow-up to that was obviously Crank High Voltage, but then the same year that was released was Gamer, and I love Gamer. I thought that was great.
Yes, but these guys, when I look through, because they haven't done a movie since 2011, they immediately got on my list of, I don't like you. They did. I haven't seen Pathology, so 2008's Pathology. They did do Gamer. They did Jonah Hex, which a pox on their household for that. But
these are they wrote for that.
They were supposed, or one of them was supposed to direct. They ended up falling out with Warner Brothers. They were involved up to a point, and then they either were axed or walked away from it.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead, Chad.
I was gonna say it gets worse
with Ghost Rider.
from Jonah Hex. Where do you get worse from here? 2011's Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance. So they finally get Nick Cage in their movie. Here you go. Nick Cage's shining moment, Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance. Like, they have no more career after you. U-Bowl still gets to make movies occasionally. These guys, it's like, you make Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance, you're done.
To a very young person, to a teenager, hell, even someone in their early 20s, 5 years seems like a drop in the bucket. Or 5 years seems like a long time.
Sure.
But really, in reality, 5 years isn't that long. And so you think of, these guys existed and made movies for 5 years, and they made an impact a little bit. Then they rightfully went away.
I will say they're trying to make their comeback. They are still trying to get Crank 3 made. I don't know how Crank 2 ends, but I know Jason Statham has said he's down for it. So
Crank 3, The Necromancer's Tome.
Yeah.
He's gonna like blow up a bus full of orphans just to make him even that less likable.
Right. Crank 3, Spirit of Vengeance. It's gonna be a wild crossover. All right, so we've talked about, this is set in the early 2000s. Location, I don't think is particularly important as far as...
I think it's Los Angeles.
Yeah, I think that's what they were going for, but large urban city is all we really needed here, just for somewhere for chaos.
I think it's important to say that, and I didn't think about this until we started talking about it, but this has got to be the hyper local crime scene, because and there's a bit of opulence they show, not that much. You would expect someone to be running LA to be much more untouchable. We're talking about like circles of crime closer to the street gangs than we are close like to the Yakuza.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
there's no kingpin here. This is just a guy with a rooftop pool is your mob boss.
Low stake, it's like low stakes mob bosses.
Right. And you kind of know when he's getting advertised, blasted all over the TV of like this guy, everyone's hunting for him. I think I knew we weren't getting a happy ending, although we do get those 2 blinks, the nostril flare, and the 2 heartbeats at the end. But I'm sitting there thinking there's no way out of this. Like, you can't explain the amount of people he's killed, assaulted, stolen from, and otherwise, and have this work out for him.
No.
Aside from location and things like that, anything stand out wardrobe or costume wise?
I think Dwight Yoakam stuck out to me as an interesting side character. I like him in everything he's in. I've only seen him in 3 or 4 things, but like he's one of the more scummy parts of Sling Blade, Right. And I looked at him and I'm like, who is that? Who is it? I know that face. Who is that weird guy with the wavy comb over? Yeah. And he nails that part, and I don't really know what relation he is to him besides he's like maybe his handler or something like that, or some doctor that he knows.
Yeah, he's a mafia doctor.
Because he's the mob doctor. Okay, I figured there was a little bit more of a complex relationship, that they just give us enough of it, which I appreciated that. It felt like their relationship was lived in, because he's very aloof to all of the happenings, and he's just like, yeah, man, you got to get this figured out or you're going to die. You got the Beijing cocktail, I don't know what to tell you.
His absence from the city is important to increase the pace, or at least give us like a 3/4 mile mark or a 3/4 race mark, 20 miles into the marathon, because he tells you, I'll be back in an hour. Like, so his getting back to the city is a milestone for Chev to hit. And
he's kind of the ticking clock then.
He helps with that. And that's when I believe Chev asks, like, Dr. Miles says, hey, you're going to go into a coma. I can give you some drugs to make you feel happy. I can, or just to ease your pain until that's the best I can do for you. And, Chev says, give me an hour. So you're right. We're painted into a corner here. There's really no way out unless you replace your heart with a metallic one that needs energy, whatever. But so I liked our pacing still. I know I'm sounding as if I'm describing all the things that I was left wanting from this movie, but I still think the pace, like we're on a roller coaster, and it does have to end. And it does with falling out of a helicopter.
Yeah. And Dustin, you said he's above average or right around average with his guns and hand-to-hand skills. I will criticize him for this. He's using a Springfield XD, that's Chev's gun, but the chamber indicator shows that there's no rounds in it, and the cocked indicator, the striker's down. So not only are there no rounds, but it can't be fired. So throughout the entire movie, that's what we got. And I understand gun safety, especially in the wake of Alec Baldwin, but hey, like, you can get a prop gun where the hammer's not down. You can get a prop gun that shows that it's loaded, air quotes. And so that's I don't know how many people, because this is obviously marketed to teenage boys, how many teenage boys are that familiar with that type of gun. But like, if you're watching it and just going, it's not loaded and you can't fire it, that's gonna...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know how many people would know that. Are you a gun guy?
I was born in West Virginia, so I...
Oh, Mountain Mama.
I know. I'm not a gun guy, but I know about them.
Yeah. I've done... It's been a lot of inner work to stop counting the amount of bullets shot.
Yes.
It doesn't matter to me anymore. But like,
that gun holds 8, sir, not 80.
Right. And like, I've seen a mag of that size that could hold 15, but I mean, I counted 17. I've stopped doing that long ago. But I still see occasionally when like someone's holding up a gun where like the slide is permanently back because it's, you know, not permanently back, but clearly they're out, and it's fine for me now. Like that I used to be something that would detract from a movie, but that's fine with me now. But the pace is greater than like the how do I say this? The movie is not greater than the sum of its parts. It's different. The pacing is its own special thing, and the action sequences in it are kind of like more part of the pacing, and then the pace is part of the action.
Yeah.
It's a snake eating its tail. And as far as guns go, like I don't know anything about them. I have some like family heirlooms that I have shot, but I've not in years. But the thing that gets under my skin and gets in my craw is mistakes with cars. I'm a car guy. I run a body shop by day, and so I know a lot about cars, and I hate when people try to spit out specifics about a car and that are completely wrong. Absolutely not even close, or chase scenes that are not possible. Like, as much as I love Drive, there's a whole scene where he's driving in reverse at about 80 miles an hour. It would never be not possible. Right. Cannot do it. Your gearbox could not handle that in the one single gear you have in reverse. So burning out in gravel, and it makes the burnout sound from concrete. Hate that.
Yep.
Car coming to a stop and you hear this brake squealing. It's like, this is not an old school piece of crap farm truck. This is a Chrysler 300. It's not going to have squeaky brakes. None of that seemed off to me. Everything that happened with the cars seemed like, okay, that's pretty legit. And even the motorcycle stunt was pretty cool.
There's no scene where he's driving neck and neck and suddenly remembers to shift to gain that extra 20 miles per hour instantly.
Yeah, better push all the way down on the gas pedal.
Yeah.
I do want to bring up really quickly. I thought there was some cool. This was, maybe it was a choice for me to say like, all right, Neveldine and Taylor, like, cool. Like this was your decision. The gas pedal cam, all the unique camera angles for this movie. That is gonna be, I think, something I remember about it forever. Is they took risks and went way too far. Like I was glad we limited the amount of interior heart animated shots. I was glad we didn't have too many of those. But we had certain scenes. There was a scene where his friend, and what is his name in the movie?
So let me talk about that briefly. That is a Cantonese slur for a homosexual. So really? That's why they named him that, which is very frustrating. But yes, his name is Kalo in the movie.
So Efren Ramirez's character, Kalo, is his name. That's
a slur in Cantonese?
Yes. Yep, it literally means homosexual, and that was clearly what they were going for with the character too. So, yeah.
Wow.
So he's talking to Chev, I think, on the phone, and you see his side of the conversation happening in the side view mirror of the car. Did you guys pick that up?
Yeah.
And then there's another time where something like that is happening. I think he's talking to Dr. Miles, and the other side of the phone conversation is like projected up on the wall when he's running in these back hallways. The frenetic camera, the interesting places that they have the shot from. It would, if it were in another movie that was taking itself more seriously, I would say, don't like that. But then you'd also have, a luggage cart roll through, and that is the cut. Luggage cart cut. As they move to the next scene, they went all in, and they obviously slow down as the movie goes forward. They don't have as many in the last 30 minutes, but they don't give up on it. They keep showing you like, hey, we're gonna do things in a wild way, and they keep doing it. And I think they deserve some credit for sticking with it. Even though it might not be A+ gold star filmmaking, I'm glad that they made the decision to stick with the style.
Right. Knowing this is their first movie, to take risks like that it's bold, but you can definitely see parts of it that, okay, yeah, this is their first movie. There's things that aren't necessary. Like at one point, they pan to an interviewer who doesn't have any lines, and they're just standing there with a microphone up to their face, and that's the scene. And it lingers there for a solid 10 seconds before going back to probably Jason Statham. I don't remember where it cut. But it was like, fellas, this, what are we doing here? Like,
Yeah.
sure,
What was
surely
that?
there was some dialogue somewhere, like we're going somewhere with this, right? Nope. Just silent person. Or turtles having sex
That's
in
the
the
joke.
background of your bathroom.
Right. That's right.
Like, we're going to do something with that, right? Nope.
I think our buddy Ricky Verona, like the kind of double crossing guy, he downs his champagne flute twice in that last scene because they just went for it, and in going for it, they forgot to do some quality control, so they just kind of left stuff in.
Yeah.
Continuity person was absent that day.
Sure.
Yeah. Or just didn't care. Same with the hiccups. They're like, she has hiccups. Just keep rolling. Whatever. It'll be weird.
That's called production value.
Right. Yeah. This could be
Like
a
the train in Super 8.
Right. And no action movie is really complete without the soundtrack. And Pete, we'll start with you. We have Jefferson Starship. We have Bee Gees covers. We have an Achy Breaky Heart cover mixed with metal all over this movie.
Yeah.
What does the soundtrack do for you?
Well, actually, it's funny you say that. Before we jumped on this Skype call, I was listening to the soundtrack on Spotify in my headphones just to set the tone for this recording. And it made me want to go grab a Red Bull and snort some crank and all that stuff. And it was. I mean, we talked before we started rolling. We talked a little bit about nu metal too. It's like this is like peak bro rock. It's like all the craziest high energy stuff, and then mixed with mashups of other things like the Acre Breaker Heart thing. And it was it's something. It's definitely not something I would listen to on like my evening walk where I walk my dog, but maybe if I was
if you're about to hit the squat rack, you need to get hype.
Sure.
I could
exactly.
listen to this. I could see this having a place.
Yeah, it's made for high energy, and it does what it's supposed to do. And the actual soundtrack, if you look it up on Spotify, has a ton of like single lines.
Yeah, dialogue,
vocal lines. Yeah, weird dialogue from. I'm not a huge fan of when people do that on soundtracks, but it definitely works for the movie. I'll say that. Yeah.
This, I didn't want the Achy Breaky Heart, not only because it's contrived, but so I grew up, my grandfather had a 64 Chevy Impala. He brought me to a lot of car shows like the oldies, and Achy Breaky Heart was very, very big in the 90s when I was going to these things. So that is just burned into my skull, and I never want to hear that song again. This wasn't Billy Ray Cyrus. This was actually probably because they had $12 million. They can't afford Billy Ray Cyrus, which is a phrase I wouldn't think you could say. But yeah, they get a cover of it. I'm like, not only is this contrived, but I hate this song.
Hey, the final note though of the chorus, you might blow up and kill this man.
Oh, yeah.
It's so on the nose.
It didn't match the style. It was literally about someone whose heart was going to kill them. Like it had its purpose for the movie.
I need to know our director's ages, and I'm just lazy and didn't look this up. But I get the feeling they're towards the 20s or maybe 30s end of the scale, and not 50, 60-year-old directors getting their start.
27 when they made this. So probably 26 when it was actually filmed.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, nailed it. Because again, when I was making these, I would make these movies for high school and college classes, and I thought it was peak brilliance to put a song that matched the action in the scene or told you what we were doing. I'm like, this is brilliant. It's not.
Hey, they're counting money. Let's play Money by
Pink
Floyd.
That is exactly what I would do. Yes. So I like the metal. I want all of that. We talked about Godsmack. I kind of want that type of music poured into this as well. You've got like the Navy used Godsmack for a while, and I want that of just chugging the monsters and the Red Bulls.
Let's get some System of a Down in here.
Right? Chop Suey. Chop Suey would be amazing in this movie.
I think there's an entire you could say you could ask Google songs like the Crank soundtrack, and you'd have a lot of that same type of stuff.
Well, that was not exactly award-winning soundtrack. What we are going to do is we're going to hand out some awards. It's my favorite time of the show. So are you guys ready to hand out movie superlatives for Crank?
Oh, yeah.
Sure. You guys lead it off. I'll follow
A
you.
movie that received no positive awards, but we're going to change that tonight. So, Pete, we'll start with you. Our MVP.
No, don't start with him. He's going to follow our lead.
Yep.
I want to hear yours first. I want to set the tone.
Yeah, I just did a very bad. I heard it, and I can't help myself with being a bad host. I am a bad host. Dustin, we'll start with you. MVP of the movie Crank. Who you got?
I know I mentioned them earlier that they rightfully had disappeared from the film scene, but I'm going to say that Neveldine and Taylor, the combo, the writer-director, they're the MVP. They had a vision for what this should be, and they executed. And I could make fun of them for a Ghost Rider film.
You should.
And it would make
Absolutely
fun. It would make sense for them to have been involved with Hardcore Henry. It was so similar. Had it been an American film and not a Russian film, maybe they would have been involved. But they'll always have Crank and its place in American cinema. And for that, I'm gonna give them just a moment in time. It's what they have. The little MVP from Dustin.
I feel the same way about this with you and Pete. We will always have Crank. No matter what the future brings, no matter what the horrible headlines, we will always have Crank.
Yeah, remember Crank?
Forget Bogart. Yeah, forget Bogart and Casablanca and Paris. We'll always have Crank.
Wow. Yep. For me, I went with Jason Statham. I think the one-liners and the mannerisms are fantastic, and this is a dumb movie. Let's face it. We haven't really just said it out loud. I'm going to say the quiet part out loud. It's a dumb movie, but it's made fun by Jason Statham, so that's my pick. Pete?
I'm gonna have to go also with Jason Statham. I think the vision of the movie from Neveldine and Taylor, it's admirable, and it's for a first feature, it's cool. But in retrospect, there's so much problematic stuff about this that it made me feel gross watching it. And I'm okay with stuff of the era being of the era, but at some point, it's that it's gross to have your lead protagonist rape his girlfriend in public. That's not an era thing. That's just you being a jerk. So I can't give the MVP crown. I can't give the Stanley Cup to or the Heisman to Neveldine and Taylor. It's got to go to Jason Statham, and he's very charismatic. He does play a grimy, more or less. He morphs into an anti-hero once he reveals that he didn't do the double cross or he did a double cross with the other person. It's I still am oh, cool, good for him. Wait a second, that's a bad guy too. I don't know. I guess I'm rooting for all bad guys. I don't know. So without him, he's the face of the Crank franchise. And I'm actually going to watch Crank High Voltage later on to see if it's better.
There you go. That's high praise. Willing to continue with the Crank franchise.
I'm a glutton for punishment.
Okay. Dustin, your best supporting actor.
I liked a lot of the smaller roles in this character, in this movie, but I'm gonna go with Amy Smart as Eve.
Okay.
I thought she played an airhead pretty well. We did talk about how she's going here and there, and it just seems I think you said burnout. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of her heyday. 2002 to 2006 was when we knew who Amy Smart was. And I know she's still active, but this was the big time for her. So yeah, Amy Smart for me.
Yeah, she disappears from movies for quite a while. She's in a new TV series, and that's where she's mostly been. But Rat Race was huge for her too. So yeah, which we covered. For me, I went with Dwight Yoakam. I liked the doctor role a lot. I liked how it was just kind of another day for him. Yep, you got injected with a deadly poison that'll kill you if your heart, it's going to slow down your heart. Yep, whatever. And he's just calmly talking him through everything. You need epinephrine. You need this. Here's how much to take. And I mean, mob bosses, this seemed like a known thing that was going across whatever small area of Los Angeles or wherever this was. They're just injecting themselves with this Beijing cocktail enough that he's just yep,
that's what this is.
Same stuff, different day. Pete, who do you have for your best supporting?
For my best supporting, I'm also gonna go with Chad. It's your pick with Dwight Yoakam. He didn't have enough screen time for my liking. I would have liked to see more. I don't think it would have fit for the movie, but I just like seeing him on screen. And he plays almost like this this scummy, almost like a Peter Stormare type of character with a little less scum. You know, he's more likable. And it's
American
like the
scum.
opening shot of him. Yeah, he's I really dug his character, and like you said, he's aloof. He's just kind of like, well, yeah, what are you gonna do? It's
Right?
Better you than me, you know.
He kind of he kind of does like a once over of I have to assume a woman passing him when he's on the payphone, and that's kind of like solidifies like, oh yeah, that's the kind of guy you are. It works,
Right? Well, we get the man with a golden gun pigeon take. There's a woman that walks by in a thong, and the pigeon checks her out, and we get the pigeon's heartbeat.
That's right.
It's like, did we not learn our lesson from Man with a Golden Gun that is panned for like 40 years? Come on, learn this lesson. No pigeon takes. But yes, yeah, we definitely get that. Okay, this guy's Robert Kraft with the rub and tug.
Yes.
Gonna take the Patriot shot now. Hidden gem. Dustin, who is our underappreciated minor cast or element in Crank?
I was going to shout out Glenn Howerton, but I'm going to skip over it to say that it's underappreciated, like minor cast or element. And normally I do a cast member. So the element for me here is this. As they're leaving Eve's apartment, the phone rings, and all Chev is trying to do is get Eve out of there. So what does she do? Instead of letting the machine get it, like she has all morning, she goes back inside to get the phone. Now, fellas, wouldn't that drive you crazy?
Very nice. You mentioned Glenn Howerton. I could see the cast of Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Like, the gang does Crank.
Right. They already did Birdman.
That's right.
The gang did Birdman. They've done some other thematic type shows.
Yes. Yeah, where they've just taken too much epinephrine or whatever, and they are just screaming, I am alive.
The gang does the limitless drug.
Yes.
Yeah.
For me, I couldn't find this guy's name, so apologies. I thought he did a great job. There's a drug dealer in the bathroom that Jason Statham approaches at first. He's trying to get cocaine, and this guy is cool as a cucumber. He is just trying to talk the situation through. He's like, you need medicinal cocaine? And then all the other guys, it's a black bar, so they've got guns to Jason Statham, and he's trying to talk all of them down from this crazy white guy trying to get himself shot. He handles it like a pro. He was hilarious. I love that guy. I wish I knew his name.
I don't know who that. I remember that scene, but I can't remember. I mean, I'm scrolling through the cast list right now, and I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say my best hidden gem of the movie is a very small cameo from Chester Bennington from Lincoln Park, playing a tweaker in the pharmacy.
Yeah, nasal spray, man.
Yeah, get that nasal spray, man. It's got enough epi in it. You should take enough of it. And it's like that part in itself didn't shine particularly, but I was like, oh, hey, that's Chester, I think. I'm pretty sure that's the guy from Lincoln Park. And then he spawned Chev to have, for like the next 30 minutes of runtime in the movie, he's constantly snorting this nasal spray, which I thought was hilarious.
I didn't know that was Chester. That's such a great pick.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you need to get high quickly, find the tweakers. He goes to the pharmacy. So that's bad advice. Don't listen to that advice. Please don't. Yeah. All right, moving on. Recast in the movie Crank. We had some alternative casting in the beginning, but Dustin, who are you recasting here?
Get Benicio del Toro as Don Carlito, and let's call it a day.
Yes.
I found both mob bosses to be bland. I'd love to see a little eccentricity from either of them. They did not jump off the paper. So let's put a little pep into their step.
Antonio Banderas would be another good one there. Yeah, I agree. Carlito definitely needed to be.
No, see, I think Antonio Banderas is in 1 to 2 tiers above in the crime scene. Like these guys in this movie can't get into the club that Antonio Banderas runs. Know what I'm saying?
Interesting.
All right.
But
we have tiers here.
Yeah, same wavelength, but just different tiers.
For me, I kind of went after Amy Smart. I like her in movies. I wish she were in more, but I thought this was a weird role for her. I didn't think she quite fit. And I had to double check my dates because unfortunately we lost her in 2009, but in 2006, Brittany Murphy was still around. And I want Brittany Murphy in kind of a burnout, druggy action movie here. I think she can get down in the grime better than what I picture Amy Smart.
Yeah.
She'd play more of a tweaker character. Like she would lean into the burnout. A lot more than Amy Smart.
Yeah, I think eyeliner drips off of Brittany Murphy's face better than Amy Smart's. Then again, she might be, like have it tattooed on.
Pete, who's your recast?
My recast is going to be Verona, the low-level thug who ends up killing Carlito, and I think he should be subbed out for the actor Raymond Cruz, who most people would know as Tuco Salamanca from Breaking Bad. Yeah.
Okay.
Ooh, tight. Purple, white, purple, pink, blue. I don't care. Just bring me more of this.
Mm-hmm.
He's that guy, and he's got that same kind of high energy that Verona had in the movie. But for my money, I don't have a better character actor that plays that part right. He's also one of the goons in Training Day that's in that really tense kitchen scene when Denzel just abandons Ethan Hawke in the kitchen.
Yeah, that's definitely an actor upgrade, and yeah, that would be. I like the job how Jose Pablo Cantillo did as Verona, but yeah, I'll take the upgrade there.
Yeah.
Dustin, very cinematic movie. Your best shot. And Crank, you've actually been praising it. So,
well, I'll say there's a shot before the rooftop shootout where he's walking coolly down the sidewalk in slow motion, which thematically shouldn't work because he's still. I know that he's just got the drugs like put into his system.
Sure.
Like that's it. The theme of the timing doesn't work really there. But I watched this movie with my roommate who is 23. Mm-hmm. He was so hype about that shot. He was like, "Wouldn't this be badass to have a poster on the wall, bro?" And I was like,
"He's the target audience."
You took the words out of my mouth. That's exactly what this is. This is like the people, like when me and Russell lived together and like our friends on our floor had like Boondock Saints posters. That's exactly what this is. And that was like the poster. To him, this is a 5-star movie. And I wish I could watch this movie through his eyes. But I'm glad that I have my own. That's the best shot because it's exactly what it was.
Is that when he's in the like hospital gown too?
No, this is the one where he's in like the brown shirt with the sport coat. It's right before going up to the rooftop shootout. It's kind of his final outfit of the movie.
Further on, but after he's reclothed himself.
Yeah, after he's reclothed and he's met with Dr. Miles, and they put like that like insulin pump on him or whatever it is.
Yeah, they had that weird elevator hallucination.
That's right.
Scene. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. All right. For me, I liked. We mentioned the stunt of the donuts with the bike and the cops hanging off of it. I actually thought the camera work was really good here because it's this low angle shot. It would have been hard to capture, and clearly there was some recognition for the stunt itself. So I thought it was a cool shot.
That is a cool shot.
That's my best shot. Pete?
Nice. I don't have any like one. There was a lot of very interesting shots in this. Nothing that stuck out to me like fully that grabbed me. But I think my favorite small sequence was the hospital hallway shootout. And it's like it wasn't 100% believable. Maybe Chev didn't want to kill those cops because he absolutely could have. They were doing terrible at like hiding themselves.
Yeah.
But the whole back and forth where he's kind of got Glenn Howerton as a hostage and he's holding off to try to get the EpiPens and then get into the flip over into the elevator. There was a lot of interesting footwork that Statham was doing there, and the camera was like tied to him the whole time. So I like that.
Very good. Yeah, I wanted, Dustin mentioned, I wanted some like Daredevil type hallway scene with that hospital going on. It had some kung fu, bouncing off walls, throwing more stuff, whatever it was. But yeah, that was a tight shot. That was good. Best scene, Dustin.
Driving through the mall on the phone call. I thought that scene is giving you exposition and explaining why he has to do what he has to do. I mean, you should have known already had you watched the trailer, like back in 2005, 2006. You should have known what the movie was about. But at least the movie does tell you, right? So we get that. Plus, I just thought, what a wild surprise to immediately put all these people in danger, which was fun. And it ends with the sideways car on the escalator so seamlessly going up still. Like it was
right.
So well done. So yeah, for me it's the mall car chase.
Well, you took mine and all of my reasons.
There we go.
It's just, I think I just enjoy the ironic situation of driving through a mall and he's getting a little amped up, but the doctor's so calm. That juxtaposition we get of just, you're doing what? Okay, now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Sounds good. I'm in a meeting. I'll call you back.
Right. Yeah. So everything about that was ridiculous. That is the image of Crank that I'll just have is here's all the ridiculous ideas we can throw in one scene together. And we're going to put it in a phone call too. Why not? Pete, what is your best scene?
This may surprise you, but the scene that after Chev has escaped the hospital and he's on the street and he assimilates into the crowd of people watching the police sketch artist on the news talk about this maniac that's running about the city. And the one guy looks over at him, sees it's him, then looks down and sees his giant erection. And that for me was like a perfect allegory for the movie. It was like, this guy's insane. You're looking at him. And not only that, it's also a sexual assault ready to happen at any moment.
Yeah.
All right. I did not take that as an implicit threat, but I guess, yeah.
Oh, you saw the look in his face. You saw it.
Your comment has won the MVP of the podcast.
Right. Wow. Okay. Yeah. That is probably the funniest choice we've ever had. So, best wardrobe or makeup moment, Dustin?
Don Carlito's cream-colored suit covered in blood, I think, is wonderfully done. We don't get people bloody enough in bloody movies. Now, I'm saying that to Mr. Horror. Now, you know blood well, Chad.
Right.
But I think sometimes you get just not. You don't get enough. And I think what you get here is there's two versions. There's the immediate blood splatter on the cream-colored suit, and then there's the blood that comes as a result of him pushing his henchman onto the grenade, who then gets blown up underneath him, so he's soaked in it. Mm-hmm. So you get a blood spatter, and then a full blood, we'll call it drenching. And I thought that they made that look convincing. So I thought that was great.
I will never say no to more blood. So
more blood, please.
Yes. Excellent. There's a pretty sweet watch that Chelios is wearing. It's a Tag Heuer Carrera, but I have to go more primal, back to Teenage Boy. Verona's brother, he had a really cool looking gun, and I thought the gun was cool, but it doubles with the fact that it's prominently featured before being hacked off by a meat cleaver. So everything about that, my lizard brain, my primal brain, is just kind of doing the monkey with cymbals move. When that happens, I've just clap, clap, clap. This makes me happy.
Gun cool.
Yeah. Yes. So not my most intelligent, thoughtful comment, but that's what I liked.
Okay, so I guess mine's going to be an even more primal urge, and this is.
Are we going back to the boner?
No. No. Well, there is a boner in the scene which I'm talking about that may or may not be able to get up by Chev. This is the outdoor sexual assault scene with Amy Smart. It's impossible for me to say that she is not absolutely gorgeous. And the outfit that she's wearing is like, it's like a summer dress
sundress.
sort of thing. Yeah, with and it's kind of like a button down on the front, and the sleeves or the shoulders, it's kind of like puffy shoulders. There's at one point, I don't know if he rips it off or it just falls off her shoulder, but that like one sleeve look when she's like looking back at him, I was like, this is maybe the most attractive woman I've ever seen in my life and ever will see to the end of time. It just like hit that primal urge with me, and I'm like,
yeah,
okay, calm down, Pete. This is there's sexual assault happening right now. This is not good.
Well, if it makes you feel better, the body double used for Amy Smart said Jason Statham was a complete sweetheart through this entire terrible scene.
Oh, good.
So she couldn't do Crank 2 because she was pregnant, but Amy Smart had called her back up and said, hey, can you do Crank 2? She said, I would love to, but I'm pregnant. But yeah, this undress was really nice. She cleans up well.
Yes. It would be on brand with Neveldine and Taylor to just use a pregnant stunt double, though, with the laziness of the production.
Right. Yeah, why not?
I think she has
continuity person has been sacked.
I know, they were never even hired, boy.
Wow. This is going to be interesting. Change one thing and only one thing. Dustin?
Yeah, just one thing.
Restraint.
This is, and I think I can do this as it is just one thing. Give us the girlfriend and gang exposition stuff in a slower paced segment at the beginning of the movie, because once we start to move faster, I don't want to slow down. I think it's kind of a special place in action movies for it to go at the speed that it goes, even if you're a little confused for some of it. So why start at second one? Give us 15 or 20 minutes of some world building at all, of any of that stuff. And the stuff that you try to give us later, squeeze it in the middle. And then once the pace picks up, let's just do another 68 minutes of breakneck speed where we only increase our speed. I don't want a downshift here. So that's my one thing to change. I mean, I think there's a lot of things to change, but I think that's what I think that would improve the art that these two guys are going for here. Is if you're going to go to the breakneck speed, let's make it dangerous for longer.
Okay. Yeah, I like it. I like not potentially doing the jump start, but rather, okay, here's the girlfriend, here's the relationship. She doesn't answer her phone. Haha. Also spared mob boss. Yep. Yeah, I'm for it. I'm for 68 minutes straight of balls to the walls action. Very good. For me, we've covered it. The sexual assault scene, you can change it. You can change it to, you still get the public sex, you still get the thrill of that, everything else, but just make it an established fetish of theirs, whatever, dream, and you can fix this. You can still have sex outdoors where people are cheering and she's into it, and you get, it becomes a fun scene instead of this is not fun. We should not be celebrating this. So, don't bring my enjoyment of drug, sex, and violence down with rape. Mm-hmm. Pete, follow that up.
I will say, I want to go completely in left field, just to make this movie even more insane. I want to sub out Dwight Yoakam for a Muppet and no explanation.
Yeah.
That's it.
Dr. Teeth?
Yeah, exactly. It cuts back to essentially one of the bandmates from
Dr. Teeth is totally a grimy Muppet too. Like Dr. Bunsen wouldn't be working with it.
No. It could not be Bunsen Honeydew. It would. I'm cool with Dr. Teeth. I think that's a good one. There's another one in the band. I can't remember his name, but
what instrument does he play?
God, it looks. Oh, I don't know. He's got a top hat, and he's like blue with a top hat. Maybe it is Dr. Teeth.
He plays the piano. Zoot plays the saxophone.
Well, either way, it could be an unnamed Muppet, and instead it's also voiced by Dwight Yoakam, and he's also getting an erotic massage when you first see him, and it's no explanation. It's just that's what you get, and people will comment on it that it's an allegory for something that he's detached from the rest of the story or whatever. But in reality, it's just they wanted to do something weird.
You have watched too much Mad God and other things.
Brian Henson had a wild hair and wanted to get into Crank.
Yes.
Yeah, there's enough the cameos in this from like random people like Chester Bennington and what's his name, Glenn Howerton.
Yeah.
They could have a Muppet, a Henson cameo as well.
Why not? Why not? I'd watch that movie. I'm not gonna lie. So
heck yeah,
Jason Statham in a Muppets. Yeah, that's Dustin. There's actually a lot of good one-liners here. But what is your best quote?
I found that because I did only watch it once, but I found that like a lot of the great one-liners were really dialogue. It was like set up punchline. So I'm going to give you one. It was during the car scene. Dr. Miles says, "You take anything?" And he's running down. It's after the crash. He's running down the hallway. Says, "Couple of grams of coke." Dr. Miles goes, "That's a start." So I love his positive attitude towards. Yeah, exactly. You're on the right mindset.
Yep. Mob boss saying, or mob doctor saying cocaine. Yep. Find more of that. With me, it's the dynamic. We didn't talk very much about the dynamic between him and Kalo and the friendship there, but I did like when Jason Statham is summarizing all this. Chev Chelios, he says, "I'm dead and you're simple." Yeah. It was just such a funny line that summed up the entire movie. Like it pretty much just said, okay, we're going to take their characters and just put it in a sentence form.
There we go.
Okay, Kalo's simple. Yep. We'll make him say it. Spell it out for you. That's what Crank does.
Exactly.
Pete, what's your favorite quote?
I don't remember exactly what the line was, but it's in the middle of the shootout on the aforementioned fire escape, and Amy Smart stops in the middle of us and goes, dang it, I forgot to take my birth control pills. He's completely oblivious, like doesn't care. That is more important. And I think that speaks to the fact that she doesn't believe him, because half of the time after he confesses to what he does, she doesn't believe him.
Right.
That's what leads her to follow him ultimately and get it mixed up more in it.
You don't work in video games?
Right, I told you I was a video game designer.
Right. All right. Before we get to our ratings and recommendations, Pete, please give us one more plug of your podcast. Tell us where we can hear it, where we can download it from.
Absolutely. Thank you. The show's called Middle Class Film Class. It's hosted by myself and Joseph and Tyler. We're good friends in real life, so the friendship translates on air. And we really like interacting with our listeners. So go to the podcast player that you're listening to this show on right now. Go to the search bar and type in Middle Class Film Class. It's a black and white icon. Can't miss it. 3-head silhouette. And hit subscribe. And it's fun. We week by week, we kind of throw back to old stuff we talked about. So if you listen regularly, it gets rewarded. And if you want to get on the show and get a little bit of airtime, it's we interact a ton with our listeners. Call in guests, read blurbs from people's. We read a review from Jurassic Park Dominion for one of our regular listeners who watched the movie while completely drunk in the theater, and then wrote a review immediately afterwards while still drunk. And it was a pretty good review. Pretty good, because none of the three of us watched it, so we'll take reviews from our listeners too. So yeah, that's called Middle Class Film Class, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about it. Excellent.
Definitely recommend you guys check it out. We have come to our ratings and recommendation time, though. We use a 0 to 5 star scale, half-star increments. So Pete, we are going to start with you, since this was on your list. What are you giving Crank?
I'd say that Crank, ultimately, I'm pretty sure, I went back and forth between 2 stars and 2.5 stars. And not because I didn't have fun enough when I was watching it. It's just there was enough grimy stuff in there that's like, where's my protagonist? Where's my where's my hero to latch onto? And I don't think this movie really has that. And as we said already ad nauseum throughout the show, some of the stuff just it was out of place now. It was out of place then, but it's really out of place now. So if you wanted to see a movie that does this better, try Hardcore Henry, try Kate, try Upgrade. All movies that I had a really fantastic time watching and have the same spirit of Crank.
Excellent. Dustin, where'd you land?
Right around where Pete landed. This is 2.5 stars for me. I think I'd mentioned enough of its shortcomings during the podcast, but it's funny. We always say this is our ratings and recommendations, but I rarely ever actually say if I recommend a movie or not. And I don't recommend against this movie. I think this is a good, a boilerplate for things that can be improved upon, like the titles that Pete just said. So this is something where I think a lot of people attached to it when we were younger, and it's a good way to say, yeah, watch it and realize that we can do way better, and we have. I think this movie would be, or this particular idea of the guy that only has so much time would be better as a vignette about a character in another type of movie. I think what we found is that Statham likes an ensemble, likes to be part of a team-based movie. We figured this out. Let's have some character who has to do this stuff instead of make it all about the movie. I think we'd be good with that.
This would be a great portion of a Sin City movie. I agree.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Yeah, I landed in the same place. This is such a weird movie to review because Crank is a bad movie, but I would recommend it.
Yeah.
and it's 2.5. It's highly entertaining. There are movies that do what Crank does better. Maybe some of them learned from Crank. I don't know. I don't know that it's this watershed movie that people are like, oh, we should do this. Let's build on the legacy of Crank. I don't think that's what's happening here, but who knows? Maybe this is the godfather of many of these types of movies. But it is entertaining. It's a highly entertaining, stupid, bad movie. And that's just where this lives and wants to live. So I'm not really trying to knock it with 2.5 stars. I had a good time, but yeah. For our next movie, though, Dustin, you're going to help me decide. We're going on a ride for our next movie. We're going to have 3 movies that heavily feature taxi cabs. And no, not that movie. So option 1, Collateral from 2004. A cab driver finds himself the hostage of an engaging contract killer as he makes his rounds from hit to hit during one night in Los Angeles. Option 2, Taxi from 1931. Independent cabbie Matt Nolan is primed to let his fists and handgun deliver payback after a big taxi firm uses intimidation and violence to squeeze out small-timers. Or option 3, Night on Earth from 1991. An anthology of 5 different cab drivers in 5 American and European cities and their remarkable fares on the same eventful night. What are we watching, Dustin?
Jamie Foxx, Tom Cruise, and I think Tandy Newton. We're going with Collateral from 2004.
We did summon Tom Cruise throughout this movie, so...
Yes, the ritual complete.
Yes, he has been summoned. We have to do a Tom Cruise movie. Collateral it is. Pete, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a lot of fun. It's been great getting to talk with you. So, enjoyed this movie. The ratings didn't pan out as high, but it's still fun to get these types of movies. It's not always fun to just be like, we're going to do Gone with the Wind, Casablanca,
Sure.
Schindler's List. We're going to do these great movies. I like having these types of movies in here too. So thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. You guys are fun to talk with, and I'm with you. It's we talked about this being the boilerplate for almost a template for movies that
want to go off the wall somehow.
And and it's there is a market for that, and it can be done so-so, and it can be done really fantastically. So we wouldn't have a lot of the movies I think we have today without shaking it up a little bit with some Crank.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely.
Crank and bake.
So thank you guys, and thank you, all the lords, ladies, and knights of the Retro Movie Roundtable. We invite you guys to reach out to us. We want to hear from you, so subscribe, rate, review us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts. Give us a like on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at movie_retro. Email us at retromovieroundtable@yahoo.com. And producing and providing this podcast is fun, but it's not free. So hit up our Patreon page, patreon.com/retromovieroundtable. Any contributions will make us richer, and that's what we care about. As always, thank you for listening. Be good to each other, and watch more movies. Dustin?
I've had older. When you're young, it's all fillet steak. But as the years go by, you have to move on to the cheap cuts. Which is fine with me, because I like those. More flavorful, so they say.